Happy Wednesday. And we have another Mapping It Out Wednesday. And this time we're going to be talking to an internal practitioner, which is a little bit different, isn't it, Akila, from typically?
It is. At this
Okay.
point in time, this is something I think a lot of companies would be interested in, but they don't know it's possible.
Absolutely. So our internal practitioner for today is Alphonse Mandelin, and he is an acting director in a data processing ops area. And he has been in IT for 25 years, and he manages a North American team, basically a global team, because it's Canada and the United States, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. And again, as always, we have our motivational mastery mentor, Akila Davis, and she is here to ask those burning questions you all have around what is motivational maps and how can you use it internally. I will now pass it off to Akila.
Hello, and thank you very much, Marie. And Afan, welcome to Mapping It Out Wednesday. And we really appreciate you being here because you're so special in what you do. You're one of the first people that got trained in maps by me, aren't you? I think you've been trained since 2014.
Yeah, that's correct. It's been quite some time. Time really flies,
Yes.
when
Yes.
you're having fun. So, yeah, I got trained back 2014, and I've been using it ever since in various companies that I've been at, and it's been really, really helpful to me and the companies that I work with.
So you've been licensed since 2014. What drew you to maps? You are usually at a C-suite level or a high managerial level. What made you think maps would be useful for you to know?
Well, when I was first introduced to it, I was told about it, and I was told, it was a way to measure motivation. And I thought about it. I'm like, how do you measure motivation? Like, it's not something I understood on how to do. Um, so I said, okay, I'll try it because I'm really into these, different types of uh, you know, systems that kind of find out more and more about you. So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. So I tried it. And at the time, I was at a point in my career where I was, I knew I wasn't really happy in my position. Things were going well. There's nothing really to complain about. But I knew I wasn't happy, but I couldn't put my finger on as to why. So when I took the test and I got the results and I ended up doing the debrief, I was amazed at how accurate it actually was. For me, it was so accurate. Like at the end of it, I said, I want to learn how to do this. And I decided to go out and get certified in it because I saw the potential of how useful it would be within my, within the field I was moving into, because I was moving into management at the time. And I thought it would be very, very helpful to have that type of information and to leverage it um, with other employees and other peers to make us really understand each other and basically make things better as we went. So yeah, that's what drew me to it. It was just the results of it were really amazing to me.
And over the years, you've come up with your own system. Like when you're hiring, you have a sense of the team that you want, and you make sure that what is it that you make sure you have in a good IT team?
Well, I've managed a lot of different areas. I've managed IT teams. I've managed customer service teams, operations teams. So they have different roles and responsibilities inside of the company, and ideally, there are certain traits, and in this case, motivators that make people successful in different roles, right? Just as an example, in an IT role, you want people who are, you know, they like making sure things are uh, like done properly, so that a lot of defender types end up being in IT because they like that predictability, that stability. That's what they crave, right? And making sure the systems work properly and are always working. That's kind of an important aspect in their role. Um, So you tend to see people who have that, like defender as a high motivator, be successful in that role. So I recognized that when I started understanding motivational maps. And what I did was I started mapping roles in the organization to motivators. And then like saying, what would be the ideal set of motivators for this particular role? And then I've done it multiple ways during the hiring process. Sometimes I do it where I give the motivational maps before I make the final decision as to who I'm going to hire. When I've narrowed it down to maybe 2 or 3 people, because that way, by giving the test, then I can kind of see and understand how those people will fit in to one, the team that I already have done the motivational maps on internally already. So I have that cluster of, what motivators are the top motivators for the existing team. And I can actually see how that new person would fit into that team, right? If there would be any conflicts, where there'd be synergies, I would be able to see that clearly. And it helps me make that final decision. As we all know, you're not hiring based solely on the tool, but it's a good it's a good additional piece of information that you can use when making the decision. Um, so yeah, I find that to be very useful, and I've used it effectively at various companies through my career.
Yeah. I remember once you telling me that you had a great team but there was one tiny thing missing. This was when you were in IT, is you needed somebody who would be very good as a buffer between the IT team and the users. So
Yes.
when you were hiring for that, you made sure you got somebody who could do that.
Right, right. Yeah. So like I said, certain IT teams, and I'm not disparaging any IT people. I am an IT person, but we've seen before that sometimes people in IT, they like getting stuff done. They're very to the point. They're very technical. So sometimes you need people to bridge that with other groups, right? You need somebody who is kind of a bit more can take out some of the technical language, who can kind of integrate and maybe be more, friendly and chummy with other teams to kind of make them feel more comfortable and at ease when dealing with technology. So it's always a good idea to have people who are, managers of those types of teams, having those traits as part of their motivators, because it really helps them bridge the gap between the highly technical team that they have and the rest of the organization, whether it's customer service, whether it's management, in other areas. So again, it allows us to kind of see, oh yeah, this person will bring a little bit more of that element than maybe somebody else who maybe is purely technical. And it really depends what you're looking for in at that point in time when you're doing the hiring, what your team is missing. It's more information for you to help make that decision.
And just really quickly, it sounds like what you're saying too. It's like you want to have people who they get their energy, they get excited, going back to what Akila said in our first session, that motivation and energy are really one and the same, in terms of being able to, like someone, as an example, who's friendly and comfortable and open. You want someone that gets energized by that, not necessarily someone that's really, they struggle to be friendly, to be open.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, your top 3 motivators are something that come naturally to you most of the time. And when you're engaged in those motivators, one, you're happier and you're likely going to do a better job because it's something that you enjoy doing rather than trying to make your lowest motivator the main thing that you have to do every day, right? That takes effort and that drains your energy.
Yeah.
So definitely just delving into and dealing with your top motivators is good. And one of the other things that I've come across over the years is that people, when you're building teams, you don't always want to have everybody on the same team with all of the same motivators necessarily, right? Because you want a balance on the team of different things because there's different things that need to be done. Sometimes there is repetitive things that need to be done. Sometimes you do need to be creative, right? Sometimes you need to be empathetic and help people out. So you need the mix of that on the team in order for the team to be successful. I've seen situations where people hire people that are exactly like everybody else on the team. So they become strong in one area, but really weak in other areas.
Yeah.
And that's something you got to be careful with when you're hiring for building a successful team.
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
Yes. Couldn't have said it better myself. So, what would you say to somebody who may be listening and thinking, that sounds interesting. Maybe I could try that. What would you say to somebody who's interested in motivational maps and who is working for an organization? Well, I guess the thing is how would they make the case to their boss so that they get paid or they get the reimbursement for their tuition?
Right. So, I mean, there's a couple of different ways you can go about leveraging motivational maps inside of a company, right? So one, you can hire an external practitioner to come in and do that. Now, to do that, it's usually it's difficult sometimes because you have to go through the HR department. They have to vet the whole system and go through it, which is a good thing. So you can have an external party come in and do it, or if you know how to do it yourself or you're certified and you're working for a company like I am, you can leverage it inside of the company. So even when I was doing it, I went to HR, I told HR, hey, this is what I want to do. I told, the person I report to, I said, this is kind of what I want to do. They looked at it, they said, yeah, it sounds good. Go ahead and do it. So you get permission to do it. And then for me, I do the maps myself because I'm certified in it. So, but I've actually gone over this with my HR department too, so they understand the benefits of it, right? And so it's available to them. I told them if you ever want me to do anybody else outside of my team, let me know. And that has happened in a couple of cases. So they know that that possibility is there. But for bringing it into an organization, I think the best way to approach it is to understand if you're having conflicts within a team, this is a really good way to leverage and understand those conflicts. I've successfully done this when going into new companies. I've given the map to basically the entire team, just walking in fresh. And even before I understand the dynamics of the team, just by evaluating the maps and comparing them in a team map, I can see where there could be potential conflicts. And I have been accurate in those assumptions based on maps going forward. So I was able to kind of head that off and jump right in and start discussing that with the employees, and then finding ways to kind of diffuse those tensions. And in some cases, just talking to two parties, let's say, who may have some type of conflict, and just explaining to them kind of what's important, what each other's top motivators are, and explaining to them how they can actually help each other because their motivators are so different, right? So the stuff that one person enjoys doing, the other person may hate doing. So just maybe by shifting some responsibilities between these two people, you can actually get them to become friends, because now one person is doing stuff that the other person used to hate and they appreciate that, and vice versa. So I think getting it into a company is understanding the benefit of it, and seeing that. And the best way to do it, honestly, is to take it yourself. Like, if you take a map yourself, you can speak to it. Like, you can say, yeah, this is accurate. I found it to be very accurate. And you can say why, right? And then explaining your experience to others around you, whether it's, peer managers or your team, you can start making the case for why this would be beneficial to have it done for multiple people, right? And again, it's motivational map. So if there's a problem with motivation on the team, this is a tool you want to use to start fixing that.
And thank you. And that reminds me that I do recommend to new managers going into a position that this is a way to get into the team quickly to
Very true.
understand them and start shaping the way they're going to manage it.
Very true. And I'll tell you from a team perspective, it really shocks the team when you can walk in like that and be that in tune with them. Because this tool lets you get in tune with them really quickly.
Yeah.
Right? I've done debriefs and people, have said, I mean, anybody who's taken the test knows the questions are kind of strange. Like they seem to be all over the place, right? But and when they take the test, I always ask them right after they take the test. I go, "So what did you think of the test?" And they go, "I don't know what you're gonna get out of that. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like I don't understand how that can show any type of motivation." So and then I give them the results, and they're like blown away. They're like, "Oh my God, that's exactly who I am." So I think that experience really kind of gets people going to see how much benefit there is from doing something like this. And again, when somebody thinks it's reflective of them, they're going to pay more attention to the results from another person because they're going to say, "Oh, that really is them," right? There are a lot of other tools out there that are kind of, kind of light tools that are on a different level, whereas this one is pretty in depth. Like you can really drill down deep into motivational maps. And like I said, I do a lot of these tools. I like tools, but this one is, I would say, one of my favorites because you can go very deep into it, and I just find it to be very accurate.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up as well, because one of the things I have found in my research, and you know me, I'm a deep researcher when it comes to stuff, is that the majority of tools out there that talks about motivation are psychometric in nature.
Right.
First, they ask objective questions, and you can pick one. So you can almost shape your answers to what you think is wanted.
Right.
The other thing they ask about is behavior, and then they use the behaviors to infer what the motivations would be. Motivational map actually uncovers your motivation, but more than that, it ranks it and it measures it. And there's nothing else out there that measures it. So that's
Right.
what's so special about it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean that's true. And like you said, it's quantitative, so over time you can actually see it change, right? And which you really can't do with the other ones. Once you take one of those other psychometric tests, your answers are always going to be the same. Like if you took the same psychometric test 5 years later, it would be exactly the same. That's not true for motivational maps because motivation, as shifts with, personal things that are happening to you, things that are happening in your environment. It's like I said, it's a lot more in depth.
Yes, it is. Well, and having brought that up, like about the motivational map and getting training, we are having a certification class starting on March 18th, and we invite anybody who is interested to get in touch with us. One of the first ways you could do that is we are rewarding people who have entered. We do one draw for a map and a debrief and a coaching session with me. So here's your opportunity. Just follow the link. I'll let you take over from here, Marie.
Yeah, so I'll be putting that link that Akila just talked about in the comment section, and that'll be a Google form that you'll fill out, and then you'll have a chance to win. Every week we draw a new winner, so you have until Friday to enter for this drawing for the motivational maps. I do have one last question before we go, which I think is interesting. One of the things that you pointed out, Alphon, is that you use the motivational maps when you're going into a team. Do you also use it when you're doing any sort of goal setting with the team, or you're having conversations around improvement or performance conversations to really help them use their motivations to achieve their goals?
For sure, 100%. That's one of the main reasons I actually use it, right? I mean, one is hiring, but after the hiring, this is perfect for doing goals. A lot of companies, that's always a challenge, right? setting the goals and figuring out what the goals should be. That this is, a manager's nightmare. They got to do this every once in a while, and they don't really care to do it. When I do it, because when I am setting goals, I do refer to their motivational maps just to remind myself. I go back, I take a look at it and see what their motivators are, their top motivators, their lowest motivators, and I factor that into what I'm doing. And we always have really interesting conversations because, my staff generally feels, I mean, if any of them were here, you could ask them directly, but I believe they generally feel that I know them really well, right? And that has a lot to do with the motivational maps, right? Because when I start talking to them about, so these are the projects that I think you would be interested in working on. These are the projects I think, I want to give you for next year. And they're like, oh yeah, that's going to be great because I'm basing it on their motivational maps. And the ones that are, based on the lowest motivators, I try to keep away from them as much as I can, right? As much as possible. And sometimes you can't help it, but you try to keep away from them and you give it to other people who maybe have a higher motivator in that. So even if it's like in the middle of the road, they don't mind. So you'd rather give it to them than somebody who really does not like doing something, based on their motivators. So yeah, it makes it a lot easier for managers to have those conversations. And there's a whole program you could put around that to make it easier for managers if you start to roll it out in the organization as a whole. But yeah, 100%. That I definitely use it for that.
Well, thank you for that.
And there's one more thing that managers can use it for is to speak the language of their people.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I know for people who are experts and lots of engineers and IT people, that's very much part of who they are. If you say something that they interpret as a criticism of something they've done, okay, because they knew they did something wrong. So if you mention it, and it could demotivate them. But if you were to ask them, for example, how would you do this differently if you had to do it over again? That excites them because they beat themselves up more than anybody else. They come up with a solution, and now you're asking them about that solution.
Yeah,
So, yes.
very true. Very
That's
true.
a good example. Well, I want to thank you both for your time today. This has been a good Wednesday, our second one, so I'm really excited. I feel like it went really well. And again, if you'd like to enter that drawing so that you can get a personalized motivational map and a debrief with Akila, as well as a one-on-one coaching session. She's offering a lot for this raffle, I would say. Please go ahead and fill out that form. And then if you want more information about the certification program, we'll make sure to put that in the link as well. We have one in March, as Akila said, and then we have another one coming in the summer. Is that correct? There's another summer session. That date is to be determined, but there is one in the summer. So again, we hope that you will join us, and thank you so much for the time today.
And thank you, Marie. As always, you do a wonderful job. And Afan, I thank you very much. You've been very open and you articulate well what you do, and I appreciate that. Thank you so very much.
No, thanks both to you, Akila and Marie, for having me on. It's been a lot of fun, and I know you guys are going to do well with motivational maps because it's a great tool and you're a great practitioner, and really looking forward to see what you guys are going to be doing going forward.
Great. Thank you again.